Right. Matt Gaetz was nominated for this position because we have a problem at the Department of Justice. For the last 8 years, they have run roughshod over rule of law in this country. They have prosecuted political opponents. They ran the Russia collusion hoax. And too many people in Washington, D.C. did not stand up against what was happening there. And many Americans are upset about it. Matt Gaetz is one of the most effective people at fighting that Russia collusion hoax and other information operations, whether it was the Brett Kavanaugh information operation, the Donald Trump Russia collusion hoax information operation, or the one that is referenced here, which is something that the FBI and Department of Justice, which hate Matt Gaetz, looked into and cleared him of any wrongdoing. The idea that this is about the issue is corruption. It's the Department of Justice's corruption. And people are sick and tired of people in Washington, D.C. doing nothing as these people tried to destroy the country and getting upset at someone who actually might root out the corruption there. We don't have a Department of Justice. We have a Department of Injustice, and that's why you get Matt Gaetz as a nominee.
This is the same testimony that was, again, dropped by the DOJ and the FBI because these people were not credible. And I will say that for the senators that are coming forward and stating that they need to read this testimony, let's look into these people's stocks portfolios and how they're becoming multimillionaires off of $175,000 a year. The reason why people want outsiders, the reason why people are not buying this Gaetz smear campaign, and that is exactly what it is because of the fact that they understand that there is a two-tier justice system. You know, you mentioned earlier that I do think the DOJ is corrupt. So the fact is that Matt Gaetz has, again, time and time again, stood up to the swamp. Frankly, I know him as a person. I know his family. And I've been able to be privy to the conversations behind closed doors of members looking forward to this leaked ethics report because they know that it's going to smear him. I'm not going to state who the members are, but what I will state is that that type of behavior, putting this forward to the American people, smearing Matt Gaetz's reputation, and then also undercutting the credibility of President Trump, who, again, the American people trust to lead this nation, I'm not going to play that game.
Mr. President, are you reconsidering the nomination of Matt Gaetz?
No.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once again, we got to talk about the cackling hens getting themselves into some legal hot water, or almost getting themselves into some legal hot water, and then having to try to avoid getting burnt live on air, which really is kind of the ultimate humiliation ritual, right? Because they've done this quite a bit over the years, and it really started when Whoopi was talking reckless about Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, basically claiming that neo-Nazis were at the event or something like that. And Charlie Kirk and Turning Point essentially issued a cease and desist, right? Basically told Whoopi and The View that, hey, you guys can't keep talking about my organization like this or you're going to get sued, right? So ever since then, they have been issuing these legal notes after they talk reckless about a situation, making allegations that have not been proven to be true at all and that have no real evidence behind them. That's essentially what happened here as The View was discussing the allegations against Matt Gaetz that are just that, allegations. Nothing's been proven. In fact, the DOJ dropped an investigation into Matt Gaetz because the allegations are so bunk, right, that even the politically charged DOJ was like, nah, we're good, right? We can't touch this. But again, that doesn't stop the mainstream liberal media from treating these allegations as if they have been proven to be true. Take a look.
You know, you have the sex crimes unit, which is what I was a part of, child sex crimes and child trafficking. How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her. Well, statutory sex doesn't require you to know what age the person is. It only requires the age. And so if these things
are
true...
So if you're having sex with an underage girl,
yes,
she tells you she's 18,
yes,
and you have it anyway, you're still liable.
Yes, you
yeah,
okay. are.
She's actually still only 17.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. And so I'm deeply disturbed at the lack of judgment that we are already seeing from the president-elect.
But you're not surprised.
I'm not surprised, but I think a lot of people are. A lot of people said things like, he's just kidding. He would never do something
Well, this is
like
the
that.
best joke of all.
That's not true.
Because I'm
it.
crossing my fingers that this is going to be sweet justice. So he resigns, so this ethics report can't, the investigation stops. Maybe he doesn't go through because there is a lot of talk because of that universal hatred and mistrust of this person. And I mean, everyone despises him and they don't want to see him over any control. So he doesn't get it. He doesn't get voted through. And then the ethics report gets leaked anyway. Right. So like he can't win if they don't vote him through, and he has no job because he resigned. So I'm kind of hoping that that's the outcome.
But aren't you disturbed a little bit by people?
I've been disturbed by him for
but aren't you disturbed? That's not my question. Aren't you a little bit disturbed as we?
A few moments later.
Sunny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism, that DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, so what's hilarious about this is the fact that she would not have had to read that legal note had she actually covered the story accurately, the way that she should have covered it, which is when she was boohoo-whining and crying about, how can somebody be nominated with allegations? Which, by the way, allegations, I think people really do forget the definitions of words, right? We don't know the definition. Like, allegations are just that, allegations. Right? Anybody can be accused of anything. I could accuse anybody of anything. So allegations in and of themselves doesn't mean anything, right? Doesn't mean anything at all, right? Anybody can be accused of anything. Joe Biden's accused of a whole lot of stuff, right? Let's talk about Tara Reid, right? And what she accused Joe Biden of doing, okay? But again, it's funny how they never talk about that, right? They never talk about that. They don't want to have that conversation because, again, those are just allegations, right? But when it comes to Matt Gaetz and the allegations against him, in which, unlike some of these other allegations against Joe Biden, again, there was actually an investigation into this stuff, and the investigation was closed. They found that, hey, these allegations are so uncredible that we're not going to move forward with charges, right? We don't think that this could actually stand up to a jury, right? So essentially, there's no credible evidence out there to suggest that these allegations are actually true, right? At least not enough to bring criminal charges. And again, if Sunny Hostin had covered this story the way that Megyn Kelly covered the story, then she would not have had to read that legal note. She would not have had to embarrass herself and to painfully read that legal note to avoid the possibility of getting sued.
She is one of 2 people whose testimony has issues that veteran prosecutors feel would not pass muster with a jury. So the 17-year-old at the crux of all of this has been deemed not credible by the DOJ, by career prosecutors there. The other is a former friend of Gaetz's, Joel Greenberg. And you're going to need to listen to a thing or two about Joel. He's a former tax collector for Seminole County, Florida. You know, Gaetz is from sort of the panhandle area of Florida. He, Greenberg, pleaded guilty last year to sex trafficking of a minor and a host of other crimes as part of a cooperation deal with authorities. So this guy was on the hook criminally and then started talking about whom else he could give up to the authorities. Greenberg was first charged in 2020 with fabricating allegations and evidence to smear a political opponent. He made shit up to hurt someone who is opposed to him in politics. That's what he was already charged with and dealing with when he pleaded guilty to sex trafficking of a minor. Greenberg's credibility would be a significant challenge for any prosecution of Gaetz, in part because of one of the crimes Greenberg admitted to, which was fabricating allegations against a school teacher who was running against him to be a tax collector. Now, we heard that earlier in the piece. Remember, I paused and I read it to you, that he was charged in 2020 with fabricating allegations and evidence to smear a political opponent. That's bad. He's got a history of doing that. Is that what he's doing to Gaetz? And then they raise it again here, saying his credibility is going to be a problem because he admitted to fabricating allegations against a school teacher who was running against him to be a tax collector. What exactly were the allegations that Greenberg fabricated? Washington Post, walk us through it. And they do. Greenberg had sent letters to the school falsely claiming that the teacher had an inappropriate sexual relationship with a student. a similar allegation to the Gaetz case. You think? Yeah. A lawyer for the school teacher commented to the Washington Post saying, no one is going to believe anything that Joel Greenberg says by itself. His statements would have to be corroborated by testimony or evidence.
Which there is none against Matt Gaetz, right? If there was actual credible evidence, the charges would have been brought against him by the DOJ. Instead, nothing happened because there's no credible evidence that any of these things happened, okay? Now, the way that Megyn Kelly covered that story is the way that The View should have covered the story if they were actually fair and balanced, right? But it's because it's the liberal view, and all of this is a smear campaign against Matt Gaetz. Yeah, they did the assignment, right? Smear Matt Gaetz and then come out and to slowly kind of, retract the statement without actually really retracting it by saying, Matt Gaetz have denied the allegations, yada, 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 right? To avoid being sued, because Matt Gaetz, hey, he has responded to Sunny Hostin being forced to read this legal note, right, with some eyes, right, with some looking eyes, right, as in I'm watching, right, I'm watching, okay, because Matt Gaetz should probably be suing a whole lot of people, right, I'm so serious. It's time for conservatives to stand up for themselves when it comes to these allegations that the media treats as true, even though, again, there's not any credible evidence behind them. But again, the whole point of this smear campaign against Matt Gaetz is to stop him from becoming attorney general. And the reason why they want to stop him from becoming attorney general is because they know that Matt Gaetz is a bulldog. In fact, The View, who clearly doesn't like Matt Gaetz very much, they know firsthand just how much of a bulldog Matt Gaetz is. Take a look.
You're one of the guys in the White House and one of the White House's strongest and most vocal supporters since day one. Please welcome a man who has obviously never watched The View, Congressman Matt Gaetz. Hello. How do you do?
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You have watched
I do watch. You guys make news every week.
Every day.
It's
We
an
are
honor. Rick Grinnell is very qualified.
So
I
you're
think it is
saying
a
he's
breakthrough point.
Okay,
yeah, that's my argument.
Germany, by the way, I was reading about him. They think he's very thin-skinned, but that's another story.
Well, I mean, this is The View, aren't we all?
I have another question for you.
No, not.
You know what? And I think
it is just.
I think we agree on this. About pardon power. Now, the president has been on a pardon spree, and many think he's about to pardon Roger Stone, his longtime friend and one-time campaign advisor, who's being sentenced, I think, any minute now. They're in a break for crimes of obstructing justice, witness tampering, lying to Congress. Do you think Trump should pardon Roger Stone?
I do, and I think that it requires a review of the pardon power.
Come on.
Question. In Federalist 74, Alexander Hamilton writes that the reason we have the pardon power is to serve as a check on a criminal justice system, which, if allowed to run wild, could create a great sense of sanguinity in our country. And so I think that if you look at the original intent of the pardon power, it cannot be limited. And again, Trump has pardoned 26 people. Obama pardoned over 1,700. Bill Clinton pardoned 459.
So the answer to the question is what?
I would agree that Roger Stone should be pardoned if for no other reason that there's been a double standard in this country where people like Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, Clapper, Brennan have not faced consequences.
Yeah, so that is why they don't like Matt Gaetz, okay? Because they have faced the wrath of Matt Gaetz personally, okay? And they know that he's a fighter, right? And the last thing they really want are good fighters in Trump's cabinet, right? They want people who are going to be loyal to the establishment, right? That's what they want. They do not want anybody in positions of power that is going to push back against the establishment agenda, that is going to shake up Washington, D.C., that is actually going to enact change, right? And this is why you see in the polls, and yes, I know you thought we were done talking about polls, right? Not really, okay? But in the polls, it's interesting because despite all the fear mongering from the left, from the mainstream liberal media, 53% of voters approve of Trump transition announcements and 40% disapprove. So a majority of the American people agree with Trump's cabinet picks. Ain't that funny how that works? And it's not just one poll. There are multiple polls. Morning Consult, which is liberal. Trump transition approval poll. 54% approve, 38% disapprove. So what you have here is President Trump getting the approval of a majority of the American people when it comes to his cabinet picks. Again, despite all the fear-mongering, which again just confirms that Trump has a mandate. That's something else that the liberal media is trying to do. Trump doesn't have a mandate. He doesn't have a mandate. No, he does have a mandate, right? Absolutely, he has a mandate for the American people. And when you see that the American people agree with who Trump is putting in charge to run the country, that confirms that, yeah, the American people agree with the agenda that Trump is trying to carry out, right? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. This is why the media, this is why they're as irrelevant as they've ever been, right? What they say doesn't matter. It's not affecting anybody, right? It's not moving the needle. And it's extremely fascinating to watch. So we'll see what happens with Matt Gaetz. My gut feeling is that he's going to get confirmed, right? Again, either via the regular way or we're going to have recess appointments. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.